Okay, in this video, I'm going to talk about inheritance in Python. So, usually for inheritance, you have a base class and then you have a derived class from the base class. So, let's start off by making our base class and we'll call our base class robot. And inside, we're going to have a constructor with a name and ID, for example. So, inside, I'm going to have um, store them into our variables. Okay, so those are our variables. And then we also want to have, let's say we have a function, or before we make any functions in there, but let's just make a simple one. So let's say like print name, for example. And inside we'll say my name is, and then print out the name. And let's make some derived classes. So let's say we have a cool robot class, a special type of robot that are cool. So inside we will also have a constructor and we'll have self and we have name, ID, and then let's say there's a coolness level. Okay, and to initialize the two original parameters that were inside the base class of robot, we need to use a super function call and then init, and then we will put in our parameters, name and ID. And we want to store our coolness level inside our cool robot function. And okay. So now let's create some robots. So let's say we have my cool robot equals cool robots and call it Kevin. The ID, let's say, is 10, and then coolness level 1000. Gotta put a breakpoint here. So let's run this. So if we run it, we see that my cool robot has been created. It's of type cool robot. And inside you can see the variables. So we have a cool robot, coolness level, and robot ID and robot name. Okay, so that's how you would access the different variable names. And you can see that because ID and name were initially tied with the base class, you see the robot prefix here. And then since coolness level is only tied with the cool robot, you see that it has that cool robot name in front. So just as an example, if you wanted to print it out in here, you could do my cool robot dot and then robot name, for example. You could do ID and so on. And let's just, for completion, you could see cool robot, coolness level, and you could print out all three things. Okay. So that's how you would print out the different variable names inside or access it and use it outside of the class definitions. Okay. So now let's get into the idea of having an abstract method, which we will then implement in our base class. So let's say we have a do something method in here. So this will just return nothing. And this will be our base, our implementation in our derived class. So inside here, let's have def do something. And here it's returning super dot do something, but let's say we wanted to do something specific. So inside, let's have a print self dot say self dot robot name, and then let's have like a say raise eyebrow. Okay. So in here, if I go to my cool robot dot do something, and if I run this again, you can see Kevin raised eyebrow. Okay. Now, to have a more complete idea of what's going on, let's make a second derived class. We'll call this boring robot. Let's just um, copy this here. So instead of cool, we're going to call this boring. And let's ignore this coolness level for now. We don't really need it for this robot. And here, instead of raised eyebrow, maybe it's just sleeping and making some sounds. Okay, so let's say I have my boring robot equals boring robot. And inside my boring robot, again, I need to give it a name. Let's call it John. And ID, let's say 100. So if I say my boring robot dot do something, and if I run this, okay, you can see it says Kevin raise eyebrow and then John ZZZ. Okay, so you can see that it's actually doing two different things depending on which derived class you're coming from. Okay, and if I wanted to print the name for each one, I could have my cool robot here print name and just add that in here too. If I run this, okay, you can see that it prints the name. Okay, and this should be boring robot. If I wanted to see the name of my boring robot, okay, so if I run this again, you can see that it's saying my name is John. Okay, so that's the idea of inheritance is you have a base class, and usually you might have some abstract classes that you want to implement in your inherited classes. And for the syntax for inherited classes, you would put your base class name inside the parentheses and then carry on from there. Okay, so that's the idea of inheritance in Python, and we'll see you in the next one.